Hello, BookTube. It's time for Friday Reads, and since this is October now, a sort of what I plan on reading for October. Now, I've been a bit absent for the last couple weeks, really. I only posted one video this past Sunday, but that was something that was pre-recorded. Been under the weather. Just fever and more that's prevented me from reading a lot this past week is a migraine style headache that has given me visual disturbances. So, and only in the last couple of days have I had some medication that has corrected that, or on the way of correcting it. So anyway, let's jump in. Well, first of all, I wanted to say, even so, I was out of the picture for a couple weeks. I still have a number of new subscribers, so I want to thank the new subscribers, and everyone else that's has been staying with me, and I'm creeping up there now to 500, which I'm very pleased with. Surprised, definitely, and pleased. But anyway, let's get back to what I've been reading. So this is sort of what I've read in 2 weeks, more or less. But there's a week a week that I didn't really read much at all. Last time I spoke, I think it was on a Sunday, and I was reading, and I just started Adrian Greaves' Crossing the Buffalo, the Zulu War of 1879. And I finished this a few days later. I finished that that week, a couple days, like Monday or Tuesday, and I found it fascinating, very good. He's an extremely good writer. I like this Saul David history, but Adrian Greaves takes it up a few notches for writing ability, and his description of movements of troops or the Zulu warriors, you can just follow it in your head and just see he's so good. And he takes a little bit of different tact with a few things. He gives a little bit of different background occasionally than Saul David did, spending a little more time on some other smaller skirmishes or some background, and the appendices with a few things, like some letters and in the back and the footnotes. It's just fantastic. So that was really good. Then I went on immediately to read, which I just received at that time, was Basil Davidson's Old Africa Rediscovered. This was published in 1959 by Gollancz. I'm pretty sure it's let me just check to make sure. Memory. Yeah, 1959. It was it's really like one of the first books to actually bring together all the archaeological evidence, the ethnographical evidence, the anthropological evidence, and scholarly evidence, and diaries and exploration, sort of on Africa together, and present a different picture for Africa. It was sort of known, sort of with academics, that things were probably a little different than what most thought. But he took it further and wrote a book that was, eminently understandable to a lay reader that is not a specialist in it. And it is fast-paced going because there's not much information known about certain things. So he talks about cultures or cities or civilizations that move and this, and then he takes what evidence there is that they know for sure, and says, well, this is very interesting. This is definitely not what the perceived views have been on Africa and Africans and civilization there. It's tantalizing. Not enough is known, but it's pointing towards this direction. So, and in the intervening years, what is that, 60 years, a lot has been discovered archaeologically and textually as well, because there's a lot of stuff that still hadn't come out of archives of exploration, sort of letters and diaries that are still coming to light now. But the archaeology definitely is the big thing, and to be able to interpret it properly. And he revisited many times through many books this subject. In 1984, he did a fabulous documentary series called Africa, and it was 8 parts, and it brought this more up to date. But even since then, there's even more, and there's still sort of not enough known for the what needs to be done and known. There's been a few other documentaries. There was a recent one a couple of years ago. PBS did one on African civilization, and I think there's a BBC one. They're okay, but that's a different topic for their pros and cons. But no, this was extremely good, and it's very interesting that you've got the description on the front flap. It continues on the back flap, and then it continues all the way on the back cover, the back of the jacket. That's not something you see all the time, so I thought that was worth noting. So anyway, so that I enjoyed very much so, and I do want to get more of his books. Fascinating character. He went through the Second World War. He was with the SOE, and he parachuted behind enemy lines, setting up partisan groups. He was always left wing, so there was a lot of problems that he had with this, and as a journalist as well. But definitely interesting character who died only in, I think, 2010. In between that, once I finished that, like basically up until yesterday afternoon at some point or evening, I read some magazines. We'll just go briefly through stuff that I've got here. But I started yesterday, and today, mostly today, I'm almost 150 pages into it, is John Laban's Zulu Warriors, the battle for the South African frontier. Now, this is sort of a history of the Zulu War of 1879, but with a lot more preamble to it, of all the skirmishes, wars led up to it, with the Xhosa, the Petty, many different groups on the frontier. And then the last half, I think, or last 100 pages will be the Zulu War of 1879. So, and it's more academic. He's more an academic than Greaves is. The writing style isn't quite as good, I don't think, as Greaves, but it's still very, very informative. And I've got a lot more to read on the subject. Now, the stuff that I've been reading in between was I started getting some periodicals. I showed some, and that reminds me, I haven't got my Times Literary Supplement. Sometimes comes early on a Wednesday, usually on a Thursday, but I haven't received it, and Friday's mail been here. But I've got a bunch of other periodicals. That's a few that I have subscribed to. Whether I'll continue this subscription after the promotional period ends is very questionable. Probably not in a few cases. And this came yesterday. I haven't had a huge look at it. Is the New Statesman. It's a weekly magazine. It's sort of center to left politics-wise, and that's what it is, sort of contemporary events. But again, it's got some very good writing in, and also some fabulous artwork that is in this issue. It's weekly, and I think I paid like £12 for 12 weeks, so I was more than happy with that. And the same with the Spectator. This is more conservative and quite conservative, actually. And this was £12 for 12 weeks as well. I don't think I'll continue because, as I say, the cover price for it is like £5, so £5 every week. But it is, I think, for 12 weeks it's something like 45 or £50, I think, as a subscription. I'm doubtful I'll continue with it, but I definitely wanted to have them for a little while to look at them. Now, there was I was looking at other magazines, and then I found a site that sort of was selling off sort of current issues of a number of things. So I bought about 6, I guess, mostly archaeology magazines, and a couple of history. One that I used to frequently look at when I was in Canada, when I could get it, was World Archaeology. And, it's called Current World Archaeology. And I'm not sure if that was just called Current Archaeology, or I'm mixing up. There might be another magazine called Current Archaeology, and this is Current World Archaeology. We'll see. I might remember as I go along. But yeah, this is something I'd love to resubscribe to and have. It's bi-monthly, I think it is. I think all these are pretty well. Yeah, they're bi-monthly. But the problem is with these are that I will want to read it cover to cover, and same as the history ones. Things like the oldie that I'm getting, I pick and choose. TLS, London Review of Books, I pick and choose. And it'll be the same with the New Statesman and the Spectator. I won't be reading it from cover to cover, but these I will. And here's a history one, which I'd not seen before, so I was really enjoying. Well, I'd known of it, but I'd not seen it. And I was really happy to get a copy of it to take a look at it. And I really like this. It's called History Today. It is monthly, I think it is, yeah. And it's more digest size, but it's more journal-like. And it looks really good. It's a general history, so it's got foundations, the death of Seneca, and it's even got a history of vampires, or natural histories about bats, sort of Bram Stoker. So yeah, so there's lots in here, and there's an advertisement for another one that's really, really good. It's a magazine called is Minerva. It's sort of an ancient art and archaeology magazine, which is very nice. Which I don't have, but this I think I will subscribe to, because I think there is an introductory offer, and then you pay quarterly or something. So I'll wait until when I do the introductory offer, I don't get the same issue, so I can extend it a little more. This one I used to actually read this originally from the library, my local public library. I used to work in the evening, sort of late afternoon, anywhere from like 2 o'clock onward, or 4 o'clock. So I would take the bus in. I'd have to transfer to another bus anyway, so I would come in a few hours earlier most days, and I would sit in the library. I'd read this. I'd read the other archaeology magazines they had, British Archaeology, the newspapers, and I really liked it. And then they decided to expand space for their computers, and they got rid of about half the magazines. They got rid of a lot of books, but all the magazines they decided to discontinue were the ones that I was reading. So that was sort of the nail in the coffin for me for going to the library. You know, the other nail is that every time I went in to want to get something, they don't have it on the shelf, and I have to pay for an interlibrary loan. So, hence, I have not been back to the library for 2 years or 3 years now. Well, actually, no. I don't think I've been there since I've lived here at this place. So that's coming up to 5 years. So I like libraries. I like the idea of them. But if they don't have anything that I'm interested in, then they're not going to help me. So anyway, this is the BBC It's a general history magazine. It is, again, something that I am toying with resubscribing, and that's monthly. Here's a good one that I'd only occasionally ever got, was Ancient History, and it's a good magazine. It's a general ancient history magazine. There's a bit of archaeology in it, but it's mostly just more history. But as I say, they bring in archaeology with it as well. But there's not sort of specific archaeological digs usually that are highlighted in this. They use obviously the archaeological evidence to create an article from it, which is slightly different skew as the other ones. Oh, there it is. Yeah, there's current archaeology. Okay, yes, I knew there was the difference. This is current archaeology. It's more of a general archaeology magazine. I used to get this most of the time in Canada as well, and it seems like I don't know if it's changed. I thought it was more. See, that's World. I think this is still British. I think it's mostly British. The current archaeology. But it's a very good one as well. I haven't had too much time. I read a few things from that so far. And then we've got just plain old archaeology. It's the publication of the Archaeological Institute of America. It's a very good magazine as well. It's world archaeology. So you get, like, there's an article here, Nubian Kingdom Rises. So yeah, this is I want to read this as like Nubian Kingdom Rises. Excavations at a city on the Nile reveal the origins of an ancient African power. But yeah, there's a number of them. A number of really good articles in here. But again, I'd want to read everything. This is bi-monthly, so I'd love to subscribe to them all. This is a new one. I don't think I've shown this, but I have subscribed to this because this I used to get, and I really enjoyed it, and so I've decided to subscribe at least 1 year at the moment. And it's extremely good. Ancient Egypt. Another one I wanted to do was biblical archaeology review, I think it is. But because of the pandemic, they're no longer sending the hard copies out if it's non-US subscription. So, and I can't abide by just Kindle type things. This is my British archaeology. I'm still working my way through this. This was the first issue I got. I have subscribed to this, which is very good. So continue with that. And there's last week's TLS. I've read everything I wanted to in there. And the oldie, I think there's still, this is the latest issue. I think there's just like 1 or 2 small articles to read yet. So I got lots of those to read, like small articles here and there, which is really great because then I can spend like 20 minutes or half an hour on something else, sort of as a break for things. What I plan on reading for October, I know it's Victober, so we'll get into a little bit of that. But for me, I spend October reading sort of heavier on the ghost side, like ghost stories, which I really, really enjoy. And I've got several piles here, but there's ones that I'm definitely going to read, and then I'm going to be dipping into some of the others and see how it goes. For a nonfiction thing, this I'm definitely going to be reading is Tales of the Troubled Dead, Ghost Stories and Cultural History, Catherine Belzy, and it's 2019, Edinburgh University Press. And it's I loved it when I picked it up just yesterday afternoon, and I read where she's got further reading, I think it is, at the end, or sources, no. Readers eager to pursue the cultural history of ghosts, especially in pictures, would enjoy Susan Owen's The Ghost Cultural History. And of course I can't find it here. Oh, there it is, right there. It's right on top. These are all in paperbacks. I don't know why I bought this one originally in paperback, because the hardcover wasn't that much more, and it's beautiful. It's heavily illustrated. We'll show it in a minute. But she mentions that. Then she goes, many of the... Oh, no, and then she says, Lisa Morton, Ghost, A Haunted History. And I've had that for a while. Whether I'll get to that this time or not is another question. And then the Oxford Book of English Ghost Stories, which is a fabulous, edited by Michael Cox and was it A.R. Gilbert? R.A. Gilbert? R.A. Gilbert. It's just a fabulous collection. And there's two others that it did. I'll get to those in a moment. And then she goes on, the Virago Book of Ghost Stories, edited by Richard Dalby. Now I've got it, or at least I thought I had it, because there's a Virago Victorian Ghost Stories, and this says Volume 2, so I assumed this was sort of, they did the Victorian one, then they did 20th Century as Volume 2, but no, as it turns out, this is Volume 2 of the 20th Century, so I'd been missing all this time the Volume 1, so I've ordered it, so hopefully that'll come shortly. And then the Penguin, then she mentions the Penguin book of ghost stories, and I picked that up, I think it was late last year at my local bookshop. It was only a couple pounds. It's got a lot of the stuff that's the same, but it's got some interesting introductions and notes. And then she goes on, the only one that she mentions that I don't have is Tales from the Dead of Night, edited by Cecily Gayford. But yeah, it's I found that very interesting that I had the same stuff that I'm going to be reading. So, and the other, as I mentioned, we'll get to this one first. This one I'll be reading for sure is the Ghost Story, 1840 to 1920, A Culture History by Andrew Smith. Again, this is Manchester University Press, and the hardcovers are like ridiculous prices, like 80-some pounds. And you can see they're very thin. And chances are with this one, I didn't realize that this was print on demand, so it's lightning printing. So there's a good chance I'd spend £80 on a bloody hardcover, and it'll be the same as this, just cased in hardcover for like 70 some pounds more. So this one looks good. This was done in 2010. So these I definitely going to be reading. This one I hope to get to, because it looks fantastic. It's got huge inserts of colored pages. And I don't know why, as I say, because this was, I think, under £10. I think the hardcover is only £20, I think. So I don't know why I didn't get it. But if I do read it and I find it really good and it's something I want to consult, then I probably will wind up getting it in hardcover. Also, what's a month of ghosts without M.R. James? And I've had these now just not too long ago. A few months ago, I decided to finally get them, the 2-volume Penguins, for the introduction, and they're annotated. So I've started yesterday, and I think there's 30 stories, so that'll take me through one a day for the month. That'll be perfect. And I read the introduction and the notes last night. I like the introductions. The introduction in here, there's a really good quote which says, talking about the characters that M.R. James wrote about in his ghost stories. The characters are antiquaries, not merely because the past enthralls them, but because the present is a near vacuum. They surround themselves with rarefied paraphernalia from the past, engravings, rare books, altars, tombs, coins, and even such things as dollhouses and ancient whistles, seemingly because they cannot connect with anything in the present. I can understand that. Hence, I like old books. Well, antiquarian books, but my budget doesn't quite go to that all the time. But yeah, so I'll be reading these. These are definite reads. I also have the newer one that's just come out a year or two ago, the hardcover of it, Oxford University Press. They're world classics. They've done about maybe 15, but I don't think they're continuing with them for some reason. This is, does it give a date? If I can see it here, it's awful dark. 2017. It's already the second printing of it. But it's got a few extra appendices and notes and stuff, so I'll keep that handy while I'm reading these. The other edition I have of M.R. James is an old Arnold, the original publisher, collected ghost stories. It doesn't have everything in, but that's the one I've read a few times. So, and these are okay. They're printed in, so they are pressed in. It's not on the surface, and I think the penguin, they're sort of like the Penguin hardcovers. They're not very well made. They're not sewn. They're just perfect binding. Not the best of paper either. This may wear off. Very, very thin cloth, but they are nice. They do look nice on the shelf. I'm not sure why it's not centered, and then they did the that way rather than that way, so it's a little strange, but yeah, so they're good. They're nice. I've got a number of them. I eventually might buy the rest of them, and especially if they're not going to continue them anymore. But yeah, so I was happy with that. The other one that I'm definitely going to be reading it's going to be closer to the end of the month, is reread actually, the Ray Bradbury Something Wicked This Way Comes. So it's a Halloween book, so definitely, it's an October book. Other things that I've got, I mentioned the Penguin Ghost Stories. I've got this, the Lisa Morton Ghosts, A Haunted History. Trick or Treat, A History of Halloween by her as well. Whether I'll get to these is another question. And then I've had this for some time, Ghosts, A Natural History of 500 Years of Searching for Proof. Picked it up as a remainder, I think, at a Remainder House. I don't think it was more than like £1.99, so I had to get it. Not ready yet, so I don't know what it's like. The other sort of collection that I've got is the Virago Victorian Ghost Stories, and I mentioned the other ones by the Oxford Anthology. This is the Victorian Ghost Stories, Michael Cox. These are fabulous. If you want just a 3 volumes of quality and well curated collection of ghost stories, you get these, the Victorian, then the English ghost stories, and then you got the 20th century one as well. I think they've done a sort of junior ones as well, which I've got. This is a nice little set. I haven't read, I've read some of the stuff in these, but I haven't read these fully yet. These are published by a really interesting publisher, because they do a lot of Gothic and other some Valancourt books. This is 2018. There's 3 volumes so far. It's Victorian ghost stories, sort of the Christmas, the Victorian Christmas ghost stories. And there's 3 volumes so far, and I decided to get those in hardcover because I think they disappear very quickly in hardcover. They only do them for so long. This was a more recent one, a year or 2 ago. This is by Lisa Morton as well, and Leslie S. Klinger collection. It was just a nice collection, and I thought it would be nice to get. I think I've got them all in other ones, but I thought because it's Klinger, and I didn't know too much about her, but the introduction I wanted because of, he partially wrote it. He's done the annotated Dracula. He's done the annotated several things, Frankenstein, I think, and I've got even here, I think he's done the Christmas Carol. But no, so that was sort of nice. And then there's this one here that came out a year or so ago. It's the Big Book of Ghost Stories. It's the It's at Otto Penzler, and it's double columned. It's just huge amounts, big floppy paperback. Some of these are not in other ones, so that's really great. Something that I hope to get to this month is this A.C. Benson and R.H. Benson. There were three brothers, the three Benson brothers, and they all wrote. R.H. Benson was a Monsignor. A.C. Benson was, I think, well, he wrote essays. I love his essays. His one from College Window I reread every year or two. It's just fabulous. And he just continually wrote. And his brother E.F. Benson as well. And they wrote ghost stories. So here, this is the complete E.F. Benson. I believe it's complete. And then this is a collection of ACs and RHs together in one volume. It looks like it's a nice series from Collins. It's called Collins Chillers. It's edited by, I think a couple of them are Richard Dalby, which we come across, and then Hugh Lamb, and he looks interesting. So I might be on the lookout for more of these, the Collins Chillers. I don't think there's too many. There's maybe 10. So it's not beyond the possibility of getting them. And then there's this. I haven't read all of this. I've dipped into it over the last year or two. This is Wordsworth editions. They're very cheap. Like this was, it's almost 700 pages, and it was just over £2. I think the cover price is sort of $2.99, but if you look around, like on Amazon and other places, you can get it for sometimes £2 or just over £2. And a few others that I picked up just recently that I decided to get was this Wilkie Collins one's short stories, and again this was cheap. These were like £2. I used to have this and this. Well, I used to have this one in a different edition by them, and I thought I'd get it again. It was really cheap. I read most of those. This one I read. I really like Edith Wharton's ghost stories, so I thought I'd get that again. The printing's a bit small. It's newsprint-ish, but they're eminent. They're so affordable. They're so cheap, and they're doing some fabulous new covers. And as of January, George Orwell is sort of coming, by the looks of it, into public domain. So they're putting out. They've got 3 of them that they're slated for January 1st. Is Down and Out in Paris, Wigan Pier, 1984, and Animal Farm. So Wigan Pier and Down Out in Paris are together. But the covers are just fantastic artwork. And I think there's going to be a little introductory essay. And like Amazon their pre-orders, they're £2.20 each. I've pre-ordered those for sure. I definitely want them. And then it looks like Oxford World Classics are coming out in January with all of Orwell's books, the published ones. So yeah, it's going to be a free-for-all for Orwell in the new year, I think. Other ones here that I've got, the other Penguins. This just came out last year. I bought it as soon as it came out. I have not read it yet. It's Japanese ghost stories, so I thought that I definitely wanted to dip into at some point. Henry James, Turn of the Screw, and Other Ghost Stories. Turn of the Screw was the basis for The Innocents. Truman Capote wrote or he had his hand in writing the screenplay with Deborah Carr. Fabulous film. It's sort of Southern Gothic, and it's just fabulous. It's one of my favorite. There's only a few ghost films that I really like, and that is one of them. But it may not be a ghost film. And then we get to the Charles Dickens, Christmas Carol, but I reserve this for Christmas. I read this every year, the Christmas Carol, and this is a second copy of Penguin, because I had the other one I sort of wore out sort of badly, and I think it was because I wasn't around place. But yeah, this was if I kept it sort of in a bag or something. But yeah, and I've got other editions here. I've got other Charles. This is an Oxford, nice Oxford hardcover Christmas Carol and other Christmas stories. It's a nice one. It's nicely made. It's got a ribbon. It just has a tear at the bottom. Now, these are, well, this is the, oh no, it's not Klinger. I thought this was Klinger. This is an annotated Christmas Carol. So I picked this up because I might go through this Christmas. And then I've got this one here, which I thought was kind of interesting. Was the original manuscript edition for the Christmas Carol. But anyway, and that's definitely a ghost story. So there's my reading for the month. I've got more than enough here. There are, as I said, certain ones that I'm definitely going to be reading. I'm reading every day a M.R. James story. Then I'll be reading, at the end of the month, I'll be reading Ray Bradbury's, rereading Ray Bradbury's Something Wicked This Week Comes, and then a few sort of cultural histories. But that's all I'm going to be reading. I'll be reading the magazines, and I'll be continuing with the Zulu Warriors, and then after that I've got a history of South Africa that I want to read. So I'll be reading other things, so I'm not going to all just concentrate on ghost type. So there's a bit of Victober in there, Victorian, even with the first of the M.R. James stories, like the first one, the scrapbook, Ken and Albrecht scrapbook was published in 1892, I think. So we're still in the late Victorian era, and definitely reading about the Zulu War is Victorian. It's a Victorian era. So I'm squeaking in there a little bit. But I definitely, that's what I do in October. Wow. This is 37 minutes so far. Anyway, thank you, everyone. Thank you if you've made it this long, and I hope you have a good weekend. There's a couple tags that I've watched that I've kind of interested in, so I might do those over the next few days. Take care, BookTube.